Hey, welcome to the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute with your host, the alchemist of Indiana's Black Forest, Alan Bishop. Hey, this channel is all about home distilling and legal distilling. If you've got questions, reach out to us in the comments below, social media, or via bishopshomegrown@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out thealchemistcabinet.com. Hey, what's up, guys? I'd love to say it was a lazy Sunday. It is not a lazy Sunday. For better or worse, none of my days are lazy at this point because it is growing season and we're starting a new distillery, the Old Homestead Distillery. So life is busy, as it should be. You should spend every moment you can creating, or if you're not doing that, then spend time with the people that you love. But trying to fit in some One Piece at a Time videos here. As always, reach out to me with your questions in the YouTube comments below, and or social media, and or bishopshomegrown@gmail.com, and I will do my absolute best to answer those questions, whether they're home distilling related or professional distilling related. As always, make sure you check out thealchemistcabinet.com. You can still pick up all of our books there, The Alchemist Cabinet Volume 1 and the Black Forest Method, and according to Kim, she's leaving the Almanac up until July, so even though it's, less, it'll be less than a year functional, there's great articles in there. It'd be a cool archive thing to have. Eventually down the road, once I do 3 or 4 of these, I'll kind of reprint the articles and stuff like that into their own separate format book and all that kind of stuff. But today we're getting into some questions. I've had a lot of them on the YouTube channel, which is awesome, and thought I would just start answering those. Also, if you're into rye whiskey and you're into smoked whiskey, or if you're into bourbon and you're into smoked whiskey, and you love the idea of supporting a historic distilling state, I cannot recommend Liberty Pole high enough. These guys are in Western PA. They make great product. This is one of my favorites right here. Their peated rye whiskey. I absolutely freaking love it. It's amazing. It's got just enough oomph to it to let you know that you're drinking something and take your time with it. So anyways, so, kind of fanboy over Liberty Pole. I got to go visit them last time I was out in Pennsylvania working on the Wolf and Wilson project out at Stolen Wolf Distillery. And it was everything I thought it could be and more. Got to get into the warehouse, drill some barrels, and had a real good time doing it. So let's get into the questions here. So like most of us home hobbyists, I put oak in the spirit versus spirit in the oak. I usually use heavy toasted oak spirals. However, the thought hit me to dry out a spent spiral, then torch it to get a char, and use it in conjunction with a new toasted spiral on a similar recipe, white spirit, as the spent spiral was used for. Thoughts? Also, I think Golden Promise malted barley is phenomenal for making an Irish-style whiskey. Cheers from PA. Great question. So, and also from someone in PA. Go check out Liberty Pole if you haven't checked it out. I'm generally not big on the oak chips, oak spiral, stuff like that. I've had some decent luck with the oak spirals, and there's nothing wrong with that, and certainly I have reused them and recharred them. I actually do that quite a bit with Amburana. For me, Amburana is sort of overwhelming, the Brazilian oak. It's very oily, very fake Cinnabon sort of thing. Sometimes it can smell a little bit like, if you're a deer hunter, you know this, and it sounds goofy to anybody else, but kind of fake deer urine sort of smell, and I don't like it. But use Amburana 2 or 3 times and then go back and char it lightly and use it sparingly. It does amazing things, and I think that's also true of any oak that you use. And of course, trying to replicate a barrel with a piece of oak is not the same thing, but there's nothing wrong with reusing that oak, especially if it makes a style of spirit that you like. As always here, I'm going to say, if you have the opportunity, I know they're expensive, get you a 1030 barrel or get you a Bad Motivator barrel. Both phenomenal, both great guys, both great companies to support. They both come highly recommended for me as someone who's spent 10 years in the legal distilling industry. I can tell you that the closest thing I've seen to replicating a full-size 53-gallon barrel is these barrels. I love what I'm getting off of mine at a year old right now. I'm letting several of them ride to be, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. We're going to see what happens with them. There may not be much spirit left in them at that point, but we're going to see how they really do compare to a large format real barrel over time. Now, I will sometimes preload white spirit at home before I put it into a 1030 or a Bad Mo, especially if I'm using like French oak or something like that, by using the spirals, that sort of stuff, to sort of preload that oak for a couple weeks, or preload that spirit with oak for a couple weeks before it ever hits that Bad Mo barrel, without overexposing it and trying to get too much tannin. That's just my 2 cents on the subject, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with reusing those spirals for sure. And I think mostly what I've reused those spirals and blocks and cubes for in the past has been primarily things like apple brandy and peach brandy. Seems to work really well. So another question here. So let's see. Since you love Limestone Branch, what is your opinion on their quarter cask spirits? Personally, I have not tried the spirits out of them, but everything else is pretty damn good. I do love Limestone Branch. Steve Beam is one of my oldest friends within the distilling industry. He's really helped me out over the years. He's always been there for me when I had questions or I needed help with something, both on a professional level, but also on a personal level. So I speak very highly of Steve Beam because I love him to death. He's a brother of mine. Their quarter cask stuff is amazing. I don't think they're doing it anymore. Unfortunately, they got out of that with the Luxco purchase and all of that stuff. I will tell you that my favorite rye whiskey of all time was their quarter cask malted rye. That malted rye was a beautiful spirit that had this sort of peach ring candy sort of note to it. Myself and Kevin Rose from Bourbon Turntable, we both love it. Kevin has been kind enough and gracious enough to provide me with multiple bottles of that I always promptly destroy instead of setting on them as I should. I don't even think I have any left right now, so I'm gonna have to find some more of those. But those other recipes in there are pretty interesting. The wheated recipe was really good. All of those were fantastic. Those were 15-gallon barrels, and Steve really did those right. He treated them right, put them in the right kind of warehouse, tended to set on them for the right amount of time, 2 years, 3 years. Sometimes he even went 4 on a few of them, and there was nothing wrong with that. They weren't overexposed or anything. It really had a lot to do with his management, his climate, the fact that he was making good distillate to start with, and the way that he, paid attention to those barrels and what they were doing. And that made all the difference in the world as far as I was concerned. So for sure, that was my favorite of the Limestone Branch releases, the quarter cask stuff. I do love the yearly Yellowstone selections. A lot of those have been just absolutely phenomenal spirits. For a long time that didn't have any of their distillate in it, but Steve's blending showed through in those pretty prominently, and I really, really like those a lot. So go out and support Limestone Branch. You always got to support good people, and Steve Beam and Steve Fonte, those are good people, right? There's not as many great people in the industry, unfortunately, as you might like there to be. Just telling you that as an insider, and that's my opinion. But Beam and Fonte, those are great people. There's another question here. I don't have it all the way printed off, I don't think, but let me see. I think there's enough info here I can answer the question. So from Silver Raven, just a question about the setup with the onion wood tapering cone. Should he flip the onion upside down to more replicate a traditional still shape? Hope I'm explaining this properly. There's tons of information out there about onion shape and the way that the clouding or pillowing of the steam happens within that onion shape before it comes across the line arm and over to the eventual condenser, and what you want to get out of that as far as reflux goes, as far as pillowing of the vapor goes. You can get as technical as you'd like to on those things. The only problem is, and while I agree with most of the assessments of people who have looked into the shape of still heads, and the French people in particular are very, very specific about the still head shape and how that pillows and comes about, vapor movement and all those sort of things. What I will tell you is it's almost every bit just as important, how fast you're running your still when you start up, how fast you're running it once you start actually running the spirits, your heads, your hearts, your tails, etc. At Spirits of French Lick, I had an onion head on a 1,200 gallon still, but the problem is, the outlet on there is 2 inches. I have the same problem at Old Homestead, except I'm doing 500 gallons and the outlet is 1.5 inches. So you have to find other ways to actually get that vapor pillowing, that vapor speed that you want, etc. So it's going to be much more intuitive, much more about the quality of the spirit you're getting and the things that you can sort of hone in to make it more right. Now, could he flip the head and probably get a more traditional sort of flavor profile? Yeah. That'd be one thing that you could possibly do, but just as importantly is how hard are you running that still. So anyways, guys, glad to talk to y'all, and reach out to me and let me know your questions. And I'm going to jump off here because my wife just got back from the store and she is standing in the driveway looking a little bit like a disgruntled Michael Myers holding bags of groceries until she can get on the porch. So, all right, love y'all. Later.